Okay, good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today. We are thrilled to be presenting on how to make your facility more sustainable with experts from Georgia Pacific, Rubbermaid, and Pactiv. We will be recording this webinar and distributing it via our website and social media channels and through email. Please mute yourselves throughout the presentation. We will be having a Q&A at the very end where you can ask questions. At that point, you can unmute or write in the chat box any questions you may have. Thank you so much for joining us today, and Hill & Marks is proud to be a support and consultant for you during this time. John, with that being said, feel free to start presenting, and thank you everyone for joining.
Excellent. Well, hey, good morning. My name is John Salvador, and I lead the sustainability strategy work for our commercial side of our business at Georgia Pacific. And today I'm going to take the next 15 minutes, and I'm going to talk a little bit about GP and how we approach sustainability. I'm also going to talk a little bit about some of the recognition that we've recently received based upon some of the work that we're doing. And then I'm going to jump into sustainability strategies that we typically see operators utilize, or operators and manufacturers utilize, and then how that correlates with some of the products and product offerings that we have. So let's jump right into this. So just to work a little bit about our vision and how we approach sustainability at GP, and you'll hear this from our senior leadership down to the folks that work in our facilities, that we really do believe that we're here to help people improve their lives and to do so responsibly. And we'll do that by using fewer resources to drive sustainable outcomes that benefit our customers and the company, of course, and then also society. And how we do that is we really focus on 5 main areas, and you'll see that they're pretty broad, but and then I'll be a little bit more specific. But of course, we focus on promoting healthy forests because as a company that uses fiber as our main source of material, of course, we're going to be there at the forefront of promoting healthy forests. So we really are committed to maintaining a healthy forest now, not only now, but into the future. And then we'll work on, and we do work on responsible manufacturing and also distribution. So we continue to strive to reduce our impact and what's taking place, not only in our facilities, but in the way we move our products from our facilities or how we source products. And then probably one of the bigger areas that I get to focus in, of course, is to help reduce waste. And when we talk about reducing waste, we talk about continuing to eliminate waste from our own operations, and also ways that we can help our customers do the same. So in many instances, we'll help our customers as far as helping them hit their objectives as well. And then a big one that we work on, and I'll talk a little bit about this today, is how we innovate responsible solutions. So not only the solutions that we currently have and how do we make them more sustainable, but of course those solutions that are on the horizon. So how do we meet the customer demands that we see? How do we meet the ever-changing regulations that we all are a part of? So what type of product solutions can we help innovate? And then last, which originally wasn't on here, but we had to, I don't want to say we had added, but we added it because as a company in general, we do a lot of this, and that's connecting with our community. So it could be from a brand perspective and how our brand communicates and works with the community. It could be how our facilities work with their communities. Or it could be in general how our company works with facilities or communities and supports our communities. So I'm going to take a couple quick minutes just to talk a little bit about some of the sustainability achievements. So based upon the work that we've done, there's been several recognitions that we've had most recently. In fact, towards the beginning of this year and the end of last year, we just recently received from FSC their leadership award for responsible sourcing and forest management. And really this had a lot to do with the work that we're doing in our tissue categories and how we've supported the management of about 75,000 acres of FSC certified forest lands here in the Southeast US. And another one has been with Georgia Pacific and the way we've made really significant investments into how we accept mixed paper bales. In fact, you've probably heard a lot towards the end of last year about how Georgia Pacific is now one of, I think there's 25 facilities in the U.S. that now accept PE-coated hot cups. PE-coated hot cups has been a topic of conversation for some time now, and the fact that how much is being used and can they really be recycled. And two of our recycle facilities now accept PE-coated cups, which has helped gain access for the entire country to help gain access in order to capture and recycle polyethylene coated cups. So that was a really big deal. But in general, just the investments that we're making into being able to handle a wider variety of mixed fiber and utilize that mixed fiber has been something that we've been investing in and continue to invest in a lot. And then GP has also made a lot of investments into our facilities just to, lower greenhouse gas emissions, be more efficient with our energy use and our water use. And then the last I put on here was that 4 of our mills have achieved the EPA Energy Star Challenge Award. And this is pretty significant because out of all the paper mills in the country, there's 4 that are EPA, and all 4 happen to be Georgia Pacific. So it's just a really nice recognition that we've received. So next, I was going to talk a little bit about some strategies, and these are typical strategies that I see a lot of operators and a lot of customers that I work with implement. But not only do the customers do so, but of course manufacturers do so. Now, this is not an exhaustive list by any means, but these tend to be like the main things that I see operators, customers work on. And those 5 are, well, first of all, starting off with a sustainability vision. But then, of course, ensuring that the goods that you have, especially paper goods, are responsibly sourced. So focusing on, as a strategy, making sure that the items that you procure are responsibly sourced. So that's either SFI certified, FSC certified, but making sure that they come from responsibly sourced woodlands. And then there's the strategy of making sure items are reduced or right-sized. So think of things like utilizing dispensers to use less items, and not only is it more efficient, but you have less items that are going to waste. So how do we continually focus on reducing and right sizing? And then one of my personal favorites is recycled content, and actually, using the materials that are going to recycling and using those materials to create new products, which of course helps create more recycling and it helps the system in general. So the use of recycled content is a really big strategy that I see a lot of customers using. And then another one would be recycling or composting. So making sure your products have that end of life feature to them, whether it's the ability to recycle those items or those items are compostable. And then actually the 5th one, which I put on here, we're seeing more and more of is customers or operators looking to be able to reuse items. So how those items that they put out in the marketplace or the items that they offer, can they be reused or are they reusable? So those are the 5 big strategies. And then the next area that we looked at is the use of recycled fiber in general. And here, the reason I wanted to point out this slide was just to talk a little bit about GP. And I just lost my screen again. Talk a little bit about GP. And there we go. And then just our use of recycled content, because we do as a company, we're heavily focused on recycled material and recycled materials for towel, tissue, napkins, and then getting into recycled materials for plastics as well. But we heavily reuse recycled materials. And also we focus a lot on creating those new initiatives that help with these sustainability goals, which is, and I just named a few here, which are things like our efficient dispensers, or even being able to create the first cup that is recyclable, but also uses 100% recycled fiber. So it's the first cup that we've seen on the marketplace like that, and it's introduced by Georgia Pacific. So just going to point out a little bit of some of the work that we've done with regards to initiatives and use of content. But in looking at our catalog and looking at the catalog here and how we, I want to say, bundle or approach using our products or using products in general, really, and how you hit some of these sustainability goals out there. Here's an example that I place is just using towels and dispensers and ensuring that those towels and dispensers are able to help you achieve some of those sustainability goals that you might have. So as an example, I just put in motion here with our in motion dispensers and then our towels that utilize recycled content and showing that how you can utilize these types of bundles to hit objectives. So here, it's simply mentioning things like, being able to hit three objectives for sustainability, which is the utilizing responsibly sourced materials. So in this case, this type of bundle would have SFI certified and bio certified paper and utilize into a dispenser that is also helping reduce the amount of materials that are being used. So not only are you saving money, but you're also reducing what goes into landfill, which also reduces how much methane gas is being produced. So again, being able to hit another sustainability objective. And then of course, being able to use or capture recycled content. So in this case, by utilizing in motion the recycled rolls, you'd actually be using products that have 50% post-consumer recycled material. And not only that, but you can also tout that the fact that you're utilizing items that are EPA certified, Green Seal certified, and Ecologo certified. So just a real nice combination of products. And then another example would be on the tissue side. And then how can we take, as an example, compact and being able to show compact in the same manner. So here I'm just showing the use of our compact dispensers and utilizing coreless compact tissue to go along with it. And again, hitting those sustainability objectives. And in this case, I pointed out some of the same types of objectives that you have, but being able to tout responsibly sourced materials, which is SFI and also USDA, and then right sizing. So not only are you right sizing by using a dispenser, but utilizing an item like compact, which actually has 95% less packaging that you use. And because it's coreless, you're using the entire material. So again, when you want to hit your sustainability objectives, looking for products like this that'll let you help hit those types of objectives. And of course, ensuring that the materials that you use when possible are made out of recycled content. Because just utilizing recycled content in general is being able to hit a sustainability goal right off the bat, because you're automatically already alleviating products that have might have gone to landfill. And then just a couple more quick slides, because I know I'm getting short on time. But as you're looking at products and you're looking at the items that you're using, one of the things that comes up with especially with me a lot is, hey John, compliance. Like, how do I know certifications, and what do certifications tell me, and why should I even think about certifications? So when you're looking to buy different types of products, whether they're towel, tissue, napkins, whatever the case may be, look for various certifications. And what these certifications will do will help prove things like the use of recycled content, as an example. So if you have an EPA compliant product, you know that the towel or the tissue or the napkin hits a certain percentage of post-consumer recycled content. And if it has a Green Seal certification on top of it, then you've actually surpassed those percentages that EPA typically has. But they also, Green Seal does things like, and Ecologo does the same. They'll go to manufacturer facilities to ensure that the way that we make products is also sustainable, and it hits very specific criteria that they put out. And then you can look at other things like, if you're looking at sourcing, you can look at logos such as SFI or FSC to ensure that the products that you're purchasing are sustainably sourced. And then if you're looking at things like compostable, as an example, you can look for certifications. I don't have it on here, but one would be ASTM. And then, of course, you've probably heard of BPI. So anytime you see that type of logo, that you know that for sure that the item is proven to be able to be compostable. and you can show your customers that you're offering products that are proven to be what they say they're proven to be, whether it's sourced, recyclable, compostable, or made of recycled content. And then last, what I was putting on here was just some sources of information that you can use. In fact, if you have a phone right now, you can hit one of these QR codes, and these QR codes will bring you right to the source for this material. So, and this is nice because the first one is just a brochure from Georgia Pacific that we just created. And it's a really nice piece that talks about sustainability in general, and it talks about Georgia Pacific and how we approach sustainability. And it's a nice piece for learning and for reference. Then have you ever thought about like forestry tours, or wanted to see how trees are, how they're grown, how they're maintained, and how they're harvested? You can actually take a virtual forest tour by clicking or using that icon, or going to our website. And you just kind of like a Google Maps, where you can navigate and you can go through an actual forestry tour and learn about forestry as well. And then on the bottom right is I have for Elements IQ, which Elements is our sustainability platform. I have a series of learnings, and in this case, it's a series of podcasts that you can actually listen to. This one has to do with recycled fiber, but you can learn in like a 5-10 minute podcast a lot of information about very specific sustainable topics. And if there's a topic that you're looking for out there, then just let us know, and we'll work on creating some information for you as well. So that's what I had today. I think I'm hitting my time. If
Thank you.
I just left my contact information, so if you do have any questions or concerns, just by all means, don't hesitate to let us know.
Thank you, John, so much. We are having Q&A at the end, so if you guys have any questions for him, feel free to write them in the chat, and we will address them at the end of this presentation. Please stop sharing your screen, and we will have our next presenter from Rubbermaid to start their version of their sustainability initiative.
Good morning, everybody. This is JP with Rubbermaid Commercial Products. And first, I'd like to thank Helen Marks for hosting this awesome webinar this morning. So I'm the local rep, and who would actually be calling on your accounts, and if you need a site assessment or wants to come look out at your recycling program. But I reached back to my corporate office and reached back to our refuse team, and Dylan is actually going to be presenting sustainability recycling for the company, because that's really one of his focuses. And I thought, what better than bring an expert in here who could actually present. So with that being said, Dylan, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, JP. So today we'll kind of focus on two primary buckets. So first, I want to dive into kind of a high-level overview of why we should recycle, some larger market trends that we're seeing, the benefits of successfully recycling, and then look at, the different stages of the workflow that we offer solutions for at RCP. Then after that, I'm going to go a bit more into a deep dive, get into some of the nuances of recycling, understanding some of the terms and definitions related to it, what can and can't be recycled, and then give an overview of kind of all the solutions we have today to help you and your facility be more sustainable. So first, obviously, and everyone's very aware of this, waste is a massive issue, not only in the US, but across the globe. 292 million tons of trash are generated in the United States per year. 114 million tons of recycled material are thrown away each year. 4.9 pounds a day is what a person generates in waste on average. So just tons and tons of waste being pumped into our landfills across the country. And everyone recognizes that this is a problem. So, a couple of larger trends that we see happening are companies and municipalities setting zero waste goals, which is, aiming to divert all waste away from landfills. These goals maximize recycling and minimize waste. A lot of large businesses and colleges are just increasingly pursuing these goals. Another trend is we've seen that, landfills are becoming further and further away from institutions and municipalities. So this is causing the haulers' trips to just increase in distance, which makes it more expensive for them to haul material to the landfills when the material recycling facilities tend to be closer to the town. So it's an expense benefit for them as well. And then we've also seen a lot of legislation come into play that continues to, make mandatory different recycling initiatives in different parts of the country. So, a lot of good efforts were going into improving the recycling situation here. However, we did have a major conflict that we ran into in 2018. So for those who aren't familiar, in 2018, China passed what's known as the National Sword Policy, where they essentially cut off bringing in all recyclables from around the world, not only the US, into China. Up until that point, we were actually sending 75% of all of our plastics to China to be recycled. And quite honestly, we're not the greatest at recycling. So a lot of what we were sending to China, they weren't really able to sort through anyways. And it ended up going into a landfill. At the end of the day, whether it's in a landfill in China or in the US, everyone loses. So China was getting a bit tired of this, as they continue to grow into an economic superpower. They don't want to be seen as the world's waste dump, essentially. So they've cut that out. And quite honestly, throughout that time, this became kind of an out of sight, out of mind problem for us. So we weren't investing a lot of money into recycling infrastructure in the US. So as soon as China cut this out, we had a massive issue on our hand. And we saw a lot of direct implications that came about because of this. And there are some of these restrictions that you've probably seen in your own regions and municipalities. So, a lot of waste haulers began to pass costs onto local towns and governments. Many cities actually used to receive as much as $70 a ton for the recyclables, and now they have to pay to get it hauled. So what once was a source of revenue now became an expense. As a result, they began to have to get a bit more clever about what they could and couldn't recycle. So we began to see a lot of constraints on, plastics numbered 3 through 7 and glass. Additionally, some areas began switching from single stream to multi-stream recycling. This one is a bit tricky for a lot of areas just because depending upon the MRF in your area, if it's completely set up to be single stream, it would cost millions of dollars to switch that over to a multi-stream facility. So there are constraints there, but where that's possible, we began to see a lot of movement there. There's just an increased emphasis on resident recycling education because, like I said, traditionally we're not very good at recycling. A lot of people do what we call wish cycling, right? We have the right intent, we want to recycle, we want to help the environment, we want to do the right thing, but we'll just throw stuff in a recycling bin, and that not only enables that one item not to be recycled, but a lot of times it'll soil and negatively affect the rest of the items in the facilities, and will decrease the overall total amount of items that can be recycled and divert a lot of it to a landfill, unfortunately. And a lot of the kind of last resort, worst case scenarios that we were seeing and ended up not being quite as bad as we were initially anticipating was some cities had to completely end curbside recycling programs. So to date, only about 60 municipalities have had to take this drastic action, thankfully. When this first passed in 2018, there was concerns that it was going to be a lot more intense. But thankfully, it's been a relatively small number as far as whole municipalities just cutting recycling out in general. So to date, and this surprises a lot of people, there's not really a lot of federal legislation centered on recycling. And this is something that we see as a potential area for growth with the new administration. There's really a big focus on broader climate change and environmental issues, and a couple of key pieces of legislation that are potentially in the pipeline kind of fall into 3 buckets related to recycling. So education, infrastructure, and then producer responsibility. So one is the Recycle Act. This would create about $15 million a year in grants to state and local governments to help better educate citizens and consumers on how to recycle, just in order to continue to push to help us, reduce the amount of recycling that ends up getting soiled and being sent to landfills. The Recover Act would authorize up to $500 million in matching grants on infrastructural improvements to MRFs and curbside recycling programs and collection systems. So this will really help us kind of get up to speed basically on this recycling infrastructure that we've quite honestly neglected for the last 20 to 30 years. And then finally, the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act would just continue to put greater pressure on manufacturers to continue to increase the amount of post-consumer resin that they use in our processes and our products, to ensure that there's just a greater market demand for recycled goods, which will continue to close that loop of making sure there's a solid economy for recycled products and recycled resin. So with that being said, we've seen the trends and there are a lot of clear benefits of successful recycling. The number one player here that's going to continue to only become more and more important is compliance, right? So if you have a solid, sustainable program set up in your facilities and at your institutions, it's going to help you comply with state and federal recycling mandates that we're only going to see continue to increase over the next 5 to 10 years. And then also more and more companies are setting, corporate waste reduction goals. So being able to set up your facilities sustainably will really help you hit those goals. It also lowers operating costs, so there are tax benefits for qualifying businesses. Hauling fees for recycling are less expensive than waste a lot of the time. You can achieve certifications like Georgia Pacific mentioned earlier. LEED, Green Seal, and well building standards can really, help your business and institution promote to the world that you're doing the right thing, that you're recycling, you have a sustainable operation and process. And then lastly, and most importantly, you're helping the environment. So each ton of recycled paper can save 17 trees. One glass bottle can save enough electricity to light a 100-watt light bulb for 4 hours. And by recycling even just one aluminum can, you can save enough energy to power a laptop for 11 hours. So there are a lot of really great benefits once you have your successful recycling program set up. So just at a high level, a couple of the solutions that we offer here for recycling are, front of house collection. We've got the Slim Jim recycling station and configure programs, which will allow you to mix and match your containers to have different streams set up to direct your employees, your end users, your visitors on your campuses to help them recycle more effectively, right? So you have the landfill labels, mixed recycling labels, and then you have the lid inserts that actually restricts, what can and can't go in these containers to better, encourage more effective recycling from your visitors, end users, and employees. And we'll dive into this a little bit more at the back of the presentation. So now I want to get a little bit, more in depth with the nuances of recycling into terminology and just getting a better understanding of what actually can and can't be recycled, because people tend to be quite surprised by a lot of these answers here. So, in a facility here, there are a lot of stages where waste is collected. So you have your front of house solutions right at the front of the office. You'll want your highly aesthetic containers that offer various solutions for different waste streams for your visitors and employees to collect their waste. Then you have, your desktop and desk side recycling bins for your employees right below their desks. Slim Jim recycling stations that can be used to collect waste right beside your printers. And then finally, with waste collection at the end of the day, we'll have a lot of very mobile solutions, whether it be rollouts or utility carts that allow you to carry around larger containers, collect the appropriate waste streams, and then take them to the back of the facility to be collected by the haulers at the end of the day or however many days a week they visit, depending on your institution or business. So one key term you're going to hear a lot about are diversion rates, and it's quite simply just the amount of waste you divert from the landfill stream to a recycling stream. So for instance, if out of 100% of your waste, 30% of it goes into a recycling stream instead of a landfill, you have a 30% diversion rate. So pretty straightforward definition there, but wanted to make sure everyone was kind of on the same page when you hear that term thrown out a lot. Additionally, you'll hear kind of two primary streams of recycling. So you have single stream and you have multi-stream. So single stream recycling is when all your different recyclable goods go into one container. They go to your MRF, who then sort those streams out from that point. And then multi-stream is the separation begins right on site. So you'll have different containers that require different types of materials. So your bottles will go in one, your papers will go in one container, and your aluminum cans will go in another. And then finally, a dirty stream is when you have these recyclable goods that get mixed in with food and other non-recyclable contaminants. Ultimately, all of that has to go to the landfill. So we'll take a quick look at what can and can't be recycled. So what can be recycled, you have your cans, plastic bottles, glass bottles, cardboard. You want to make sure it's flattened, because if it's not, it can really mess things up at the MRF facilities. Aluminum foil, paper cartons, and then you'll notice the word unsoiled above paper towels, napkins, plates, and coffee cups. So what that means is, you don't want there to be grease, food waste, or anything on these goods, because what happens when those oils soak into the paper fibers, those can't really be sorted out. So, if you have a really dirty paper towel that's thrown in the recycling bin, it can get to the material recovery facility and contaminate a whole batch of recyclables that now have to go to a landfill. So it's really important that you make sure those are very unsoiled before you put them in the recycling bin. Otherwise, you need to compost them or place them in the landfill. So some key items that need to be thrown away. One that really surprises people is plastic bags. So plastic bags in and of themselves are technically recyclable. The problem is when they put these in the material recovery facilities, they just absolutely wreak havoc. They'll get twisted in a lot of the gears and the mechanics that are in these facilities, and they can shut down assembly lines for hours as they have to work to unclog the machinery and keep everything going. So what you'll find, depending upon your area, your municipality may have plastic bag specific collections, and a lot of retailers also will have programs where they can collect plastic bags and send those to facilities that specialize in recycling those goods. And additionally, another one that surprises people is styrofoam. And the reason this is really not a good recyclable is just because it's 95% air. So, the amount of energy you use to recycle these pieces of goods is less beneficial than it is, to go through that whole process. So it's better to just put those in a landfill and just focus on reducing your use of styrofoam, just because it's not worth the energy it consumes to actually go through the recycling process for those products. So lastly here, and I'll take a look at my clock. So I think we have time. I wanted to show you all a video really quickly of the material recovery facilities. Most of the time when you read these in newspaper articles or websites, you'll see these abbreviated as MRFs. So, once you've collected your recyclables at your institutions, at your facilities, the waste hauler picks them up and takes them to these. So I wanted to give you a quick overview of what actually happens at these facilities.
Material recovery facilities, or MRFs, are where recyclables go after they leave the curbside bins. The MRF sorts, processes, and bales these recyclables to be shipped to manufacturers. First, all the materials are unloaded and placed onto a conveyor belt in preparation for sorting. They then fall onto an inclined screen and are sorted by gravity and shape. The paper products travel up the screen. While the paper products travel up, containers fall back and through the screen onto a new conveyor that takes them to their next step in the sorting process. This process isn't foolproof. Workers sort out trash and misdirected recyclables by hand. This lessens the amount of contamination in the final recycling load. The paper products are dropped into a holding container that waits at the end of the conveyor, then baled. Plastic bags are the #1 problem at a MRF. While they are recyclable, a MRF can't process them. Take plastic bags to a grocery store, and they will take care of recycling those. The containers that previously rolled down and through the screen begin the next step with super strong magnets that attract steel. They pick steel products up and move them to another conveyor that delivers them to their appropriate holding container. Magnets don't attract aluminum, so it's sorted through a kind of reverse magnet called an eddy current, which shoots the aluminum products into a catch bin. Next, the heavier glass falls into a pit, while the lighter plastic materials float onto the next conveyor belt for further sorting. The now broken glass, called cullet, is then shipped to a glass recycling facility. Sometimes plastics are manually sorted, but more and more this is done through optical sorting. This means the plastic is scanned and sorted by puffs of air into groups of type and color. #1 plastics are taken out of the process, stored, and baled. Plastics the scanners don't pick up are further sorted by workers into specific groups. Plastics not removed during this process fall off the end of the conveyor into a pit to be shipped to plastic manufacturers. After all the materials have been sorted and processed, except for the glass, they are baled and can weigh anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 pounds. Manufacturers buy these bales and create new products of that recycled material. Find out more at recyclemorenc.org.
So lastly, just wanted to give a broad overview of a lot of the solutions that we offer. So our key emphasis across all these products is, as we mentioned, there's not really any large scale federal recycling mandates today. So, the requirements that you have vary significantly by state, by county, and by municipality. So with all of our solutions here, we offer them in a variety of colors with a variety of labels. So regardless of whether you're single stream recycling, multi-stream recycling, you have different requirements for colors and your different waste streams. We have solutions that can really be tailored to your individual area and are really adaptive. So for instance, with the Slim Jim recycling station here in the center of the bottom, if you're a single stream facility, you can buy a 2-stream container where you have one that is dedicated to landfill and another that's dedicated to mixed recycling, where the users can put everything in there. Additionally, if you have to separate by compost or you have to separate out bottles, cans, paper individually, you can customize it by color and by label to ensure that you're able to, be compliant with whatever goals your corporation has, whatever laws your state or municipality has, just because we know this is a very complex and diversified, mandated environment currently across the country and definitely across the globe. So our number one emphasis is making sure, we offer solutions that can be tailored to your needs, and make sure you can, continue to improve upon your diversion rates and then ensure compliance with whatever your goals and legislation is in your communities. So thank you.
Thank you so much. That was so interesting. The MRFs, that was fascinating. So as we wait for our next presenter from Pactiv, Alex, to pull up your presentation, if you just want to stop sharing your screen, Dylan, and then he can pull up his presentation and we'll begin Pactiv's portion of this webinar.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm just going to share my screen here real quickly.
And just a reminder that we are having a Q&A after this portion, where you can ask John, Dylan, and Alex questions about their various presentations. All right.
Okay, Katie, is my presentation showing correctly on the screen?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Alex Kieper with Pactiv Evergreen. I'm a territory sales rep in the Northeast. And we've also got Chris Parks also on this call. He is a district sales manager for Pactiv in the Northeast as well. I look forward to talking with everybody here today about sustainability missions and how we can make our facilities and operations more sustainable. So sustainability for a large packaging company like Pactiv is very important, and we are looking to be a industry leader moving forward in sustainability. So what I wanted to talk about today is how Pactiv has embraced sustainability leadership, how we've crafted our sustainability missions, and how other companies might be able to make their own sustainability direction specific to their own business, our specific sustainability goals, and how that might relate and support your own sustainability missions. And then also wanted to talk about what true sustainability means as far as product claims and certifications for different product categories. So as you can see on this slide, Pactiv has put together our sustainability pillars, which I think is really important for any organization who wants to take sustainability seriously, is to really lay out that overarching strategy and develop a specific kind of operational direction as to how you're going to meet those goals. So as you can see here, for us, we're putting substantial resources into reducing our emissions and energy use at our plants, and minimizing waste. And then also specific emphasis on what I call the 4 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle, and renew approach to the manufacturing of our materials and products. And so Pactiv has put a lot of emphasis and investment into developing new materials and making sure that the products that we're creating are sustainable in a more circular economy, as opposed to a take from the earth, use it, and cast it aside. So we're working with our communities. I know there's been some discussion about the MRFs, the MRFs already on this, and we'll get into how we collaborate with them in this presentation as well. So kind of a big deal goal for Pactiv as a large manufacturer of food service packaging products. We've come out with the goal by 2030, 100% of our products will be made with recycled, recyclable, or renewable materials. So while some companies may still be manufacturing in materials like polystyrene or foam that doesn't have as big of an end-use recycling capability, we will be exiting that business and making sure, again, that we are supporting our overall sustainability pillars by creating products that meet the 4 R's. So this slide here talks about developing, what your business's preferred sustainability attribute may be when it comes to food service packaging. So, everybody has different goals financially, and they have different goals when it comes to sustainable. So we want to offer a variety of options that might help a business meet their sustainability objectives as well as other financial objectives. So reducing environmental impact. We do have products that have less material in them, like a mineral-filled polypropylene blend, which is basically a 50% virgin resin material with a 50% mineral blend in it, so it reduces that environmental impact. Excuse me. We have content that or products that have recycled content, recycled materials in them, which helps reduce our dependence on virgin materials and diverting valuable materials from landfills. And then we're also doing a lot in the renewable space. So we have products, particularly in fiber and paper that has materials from trees or plants. We've got paper-based straws now that are really unique. And then also reusable materials. So we do make a variety of products that are top rack dishwasher safe. So could be washed and reused by consumers, diverting them from the waste stream. So, which sustainable option is best for your business really depends on, the product, the end use application, how it'll be used. Certain product materials are better with heat tolerance and those types of things. So, again, we're very into being collaborative with customers as to what might work best, and we can help kind of make those decisions and guide you towards a preferred sustainable solution. So when it comes to food service packaging and environmental claims, we've found there's kind of just a lot of misinformation in the various markets, and it's important to kind of understand what true sustainability means and how it relates to people's own individual businesses. So in the U.S., the Federal Trade Commission puts out the Guide for Use of Environmental Marketing Claims. So any kind of marketing claim that Pactiv Evergreen makes meets this FTC guide. So for a renewable product, we would use that claim for any product that's made from plant-based materials that grow and renew periodically. So that's specifically your fiber and paper, and also polylactic acid products, and the bio plant-based straw. For recycled content, when we use that terminology, it's materials that have been diverted from the waste stream and reprocessed to make new products. So when we use this, it doesn't also include production scrap that routinely gets reused. So if you've got a 25% minimum recycled content, there might actually be more recycled content in that product when you also include the production scrap that is placed back into that product. With our APET or RPET products, 25% minimum recycled content is the claim that we make. There's also some polypropylene cutlery and some foam and fiber items that also have recycled content put back into them. For recyclable, so the stipulations for calling a product recyclable, a substantial majority of the population needs to have access, whether that's curbside or drop off, to recycle the product. And then, excuse me, the recycling facility can sort the material, and there's an end market for the recovered material. So you'll see here scenarios for us. If there's greater than 60% access, we can use the claim of recyclable. If there's 20 to 60% access, there'll be a tag that would say this product may not be recyclable in your area. And then if there's less than 20% access, we'll only put that it's recyclable only in few communities that have appropriate recycling programs. A couple things to consider. There's a lot of confusion with the resin identification codes. So this is not a recycling code, and just because the material is recyclable, it doesn't mean that the product is necessarily recyclable. It depends on a lot of local stipulations in terms of how products can be handled, and various markets can handle certain materials, whereas in other parts of the country they cannot. So it's really incumbent on kind of digging into what your local community can handle. And with that, on earthchoicepackaging.com or pactiv.com, there's also a section where you can find out, if you search by your zip code, the product bans and resources for access to recycling centers and that type of information. And I'm happy to provide that information to anybody who would need it to really dig into what the local setup is concerning sustainability and recycling. So some common misconceptions and myths. All PET products are not magically recyclable. So certain PET products like water and soda bottles get collected and recycled at high rates. Other PET products, such as like cups and clamshells, require additional work with agreements to collect, and they need to be cleaned in certain ways. So the reality is PET products are actually recycled at only about a 10% national rate. So it's not as high as people would think it would be. But that is getting better each year as more communities invest in different recycling technologies. All paper products are recyclable. The reality is that paper may be recyclable, but once it's converted into a product, it may not be. So like paper cups and takeout containers have low access rates typically at the MRFs and acceptance by end markets. And like has been discussed already on this presentation, those products need to be cleaned, not be like completely soiled with grease to really have an end use recyclability. And foam products cannot be recycled. Foam actually can be recycled. However, it has low access rate and few end use markets, which is why you often see it in bans like a New York State coming up next year, because there's just not the access or capabilities to recycle it. It's considered basically to be kind of the low end of sustainability when it comes to food service packaging. Another common misconception, recycling is really not dying. North American MRFs were selling a lot of recovered materials in the past to export markets like China and India. Excuse me, many of those markets have kind of moved away from buying our trash, essentially, for a variety of reasons. So that, has really put pressure on domestic communities to come together and solve for this issue. Which communities are adapting, which I'll show you some data on that. But overall, recycling, is a business like anything else in America, and to be financially successful, the MRFs need to be able to make money. So the process is challenged right now because there are some struggles to have the MRFs be in a position to be financially viable. And lastly, we all play a part in making recycling work. So, buying those products with the recycled materials, designing products with recycling in mind, like Pactiv is doing, and establishing, well-run recycle programs in local communities is very important. So I found a lot of misinformation kind of in the market about compostable. So I think there's just a lot of misunderstanding when it comes to what is compostability of packaging. So we'll only call a product compostable if a substantial majority of the population has access to compost a particular product, and it will break down into a usable compost in a safe and timely manner. So many of these composting infrastructures are in their infancy, and there's not very many of them. Less than 5% of the U.S. population has access to compost packaging facilities. And there are about 120 composters that accept paper food service packaging, and only about 90 that accept plastic food service packaging in the US and Canada. Some compostable Pactiv products that you may be thinking about: molded fiber, polylactic acid, some paperboard, tableware that we have as well. And these products must be tested to meet compostability standards before we can claim compostable. And we'll talk about who does that here on this next slide. So compostable products are actually lab tested by a third party to meet compostability standards. In the US, ASTM International is really the standard setting body, and Biodegradable Products Institute, or BPI, is the most common third-party certifier of compostable products. So those would be the ones that you'd want to be on the lookout for as the main players in certifying compostability of a product. If you find products in the market that don't have specific backing of these standard setting bodies, you would probably want to look into it a little bit further to make sure that they are actually meeting the sustainability objectives of your business. And in some cases, products may be put through real-world facility testing to prove that they are compostable. There's a company in Washington State that does this, Cedar Grove. Some warnings about environmental claims. Just because a material is compostable, it doesn't mean the product is compostable. So similar to recycling, almost all of today's compostable products are designed for industrial composting, where they can be managed and decompose appropriately. So if the end use product is going into a landfill, it is not going to decompose appropriately. So just because a product is biodegradable doesn't mean it's also compostable. So everything is technically biodegradable given the right time and environment. But if you're going to label something biodegradable, a product must break down into nature within 1 year of customary disposal. So because less than 5% of the US has access to the commercial composting facilities, we avoid making a claim because there's little evidence that anything breaks down in a landfill within a year, no matter what the material is. Okay, myths and facts for composting. Composting of food packaging is still, like I said, kind of in its infancy, roundabout where recycling was 40 years ago. The vast majority of composters still only accept yard debris. There's a growing recognition that food scraps should not be landfilled, and food is the largest contributor to landfills today. As a result, composting opportunities are, expanding. And again, composting is also a business, so companies are looking into how to be financially viable with composting. Okay, and lastly, on the environmental claims, reusable, I kind of alluded to this earlier. We're referring to certain plastic products that have demonstrated the ability to be reused after being repeatedly dishwasher washed. And we do that with an internal test process to make sure that the product can be reused after washed. So an example of a product available through Marks is our dual color polypropylene products that are top rack dishwasher reusable. Okay, and lastly here on products, paper certifications. We're really trying to ensure that responsible forestry practices and on paper are certified. So with Evergreen, our North American facilities have independent third-party certifications from the Forest Stewardship Council. the program for the endorsement of forest certification, and the Sustainable Forestry Initiative. We use multiple paper suppliers, and I'm happy to talk with anybody who'd like specific information about our suppliers and how their sustainable missions contribute to the end use product. This is just a map here on this next slide that kind of shows the residential collection of compostable packaging. So you can see in the US, not really a ton of facilities on this map yet. The Food Service Packaging Institute conducted this study to identify residential curbside organic collection programs. There were 148 programs, which you can see on this map, but they're rapidly expanding because there was an 87% increase in these programs over the previous 3-year period. And of these food waste programs, 77% accept at least one type of food service packaging. And this is also another map here that shows a FPI composting facilities map that are willing and able to accept food scraps and compostable packaging materials. So the dark dots on this map, they accept food service packaging, and the light ones don't. So if you're looking at the New York market on this map, there's really just a handful of those dark accepts food service packaging compostable products. The most common packaging materials that were compostable and accepted were plastic bags, uncoated food soil paper, and paper bags. So with that, I appreciate everyone's time today and kind of learning about what Pactiv is doing to become a more circular economy-based company, and would like to open it up for questions from anybody who'd like to learn anything further about Pactiv and sustainability.
Thank you so much, Alex. And if there's any questions for any of our presenters, please feel free to write in the chat or unmute yourselves and ask. How are you prepping for the upcoming foam ban for each of the presenters? I guess Pactiv, this would be a good question. Alex, for you to respond.
Yeah, sure. So, Pactiv has put substantial investment into our Earth Choice product banner, which any product that falls under Earth Choice meets one of the 4 R's that we talked about in the presentation. And we are actually working very hard to expand our output capabilities on several of these product lines. The mineral-filled polypropylene containers that I talked about that reduce the environmental impact, we're working very hard to expand production on that. Our dual-color polypropylene reusable materials that's stocked by Hill & Marks. We are installing a whole new line of manufacturing capability in the fall, which will double our output. And so these products that meet the legal requirements of New York State's ban, we're putting a lot of emphasis in being able to increase our output and support our partners to meet the needs of the businesses, specifically in New York.
Fantastic. And I would also say from Hill & Marks, we will be coming out with a guide on foam alternatives for you guys to view. And sustainability is deeply important to our company as well. We have a LEED certified building and a whole sustainability initiative that you can view on hillandmarks.com/sustainable. All right, let's see if I think we might have one more question. Thank you. And do you foresee any other production materials getting banned in the future? I guess it's kind of hard to determine.
Yeah, it's really, really tough to say. I would say the foam has been kind of the focus of various local, state, and federal lawmakers. When it comes to the specific materials that Pactiv manufactures in, I have not heard of a widespread issue or concern in terms of other bans. I will say the other thing that has some attention I know in California and a few other states is the PFAS coating that you'll often find on paper-based products, with its potential links to causing cancer. It's getting banned in some communities. So with that in mind, Pactiv has actually engineered a water-based coating for some of the paper products that does not include PFAS. It's proprietary, and it's on a few of our products to include compostable paperboard plates and bowls. And this water-based coating, would obviously be an alternative to traditional products that have the PFAS on them to prevent, leaking through the plates and bowls.
All right, fantastic. So we have hit officially the hour mark, so I don't want to keep anyone on here for much longer. I want to say thank you to everyone who joined this webinar today, and thank you to our presenters. You guys did a fantastic job. You can find this. We did record this webinar. We will be distributing it to those who attended today. And if you have any questions, feel free to email us at marketing@hillandmarks.com. And thank you so much for joining us. Be aware of our expo. We have a Hill & Marks Facility and Equipment Expo on May 14th. It's in person. So you can register for that at hillandmarks.com/equipment show. Thank you to all of our presenters, and thank you to everyone who joined.
Thanks, Katie.
Great
Thank
job.
you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.